Hi, you are welcome again to our Fireside session with Atul Khosla uh, on the topic opportunities and challenges in this pandemic. So before come online, I'll tell about Mr. Atul Khosla. Atul Khosla is founder and vice chancellor at Shoolini University, Solan, Himachal Pradesh, India's leading research-centric not-for-profit private university. Atul started his career with McKinsey and Company, the world leading consulting firm. In the last 23 years as a consultant, Atul has advised clients in India, Asia, North America, Europe, and Australia. Prior to joining Chulani, Atul was India's CEO and global partner at Oliver Wyman, the leading international consulting firm. So I welcome Atul and start the session.
Thank you,
Hi
Manish.
Atul. So,
Hi.
uh, so sir, in this pandemic, what do you think? What is the challenges higher education and universities are facing?
Well, that's a big topic, but I'll summarize it in one sentence, and that is our first challenge is not to let the flowers wilt. What I mean by that is actually both literally and figuratively. Most campuses are beautiful, lots of flowers around. We have to make sure they are watered, but also we have lots of young minds around which we need to water. So, my first biggest priority right now is I have 150 students on campus, and I have to make sure that they are all safe and they're all healthy. So that's the biggest challenge we have at the moment. But before I actually get into the details of your question, Manish, let me quickly tell about myself and about Shoolini in a minute. My name is Atul Khosla. I am the Pro Vice Chancellor at a university by the name of Shoolini University. We are located in Himachal Pradesh. As a quick background, I spent all my years in consulting in different parts of the world, and around 10 years ago, moved to teaching full time. And my role at Shoolini, really, apart from being the founder, is to ensure that we bring in new thinking and new ideology and new innovation into higher education. Shoolini is a research-centric university. We are a university with a difference. We're trying to bring in deep research into what we do, which is a little different from the way most other private universities run themselves. So, this might be a matter of luck, but we were not. I'm not saying that we were getting prepared for COVID, but we started investing in technology around 4 to 5 years ago. We have always believed that there needs to be an outside the box thinking as far as higher education goes. And as COVID happened, we were able to roll it out across the university. But before I get into what we have done on the learning side, I'll try to summarize the challenges faced by higher education and institutions. And I'm talking about the broader, I would say, spectrum of higher educational universities and institutions. It could be in India, it could be outside. And I'll categorize them in four categories, Manish. Challenges around learning, challenges around continuity of research, challenges in maintaining operations, and challenging in financials. So these would be the four broad areas about which I'll speak about. The first is learning. My biggest challenge, I think, or the challenge of most universities, is to keep our students, their minds occupied at this juncture. They're all quarantined or they're in lockdown. How do we make sure that we can excite the students? How do we make sure that they don't move into different directions of depression or other things? And what we're learning is that students are getting very excited by the virtual university concept, the concept of learning over the web, the concept of unleashing the power of the web and learning. And that's, I think, one big area, one big challenge that universities face, which is to say that how do you make sure that teaching and learning doesn't stop? Now, it's easy to say, it's easy to implement technology. The more difficult part is that our traditional ways of learning, our traditional ways of teaching have to dramatically change, which means in a very short period of time, we have to change the way our faculty teaches. We have to change the way pedagogy happens. For example, learning in the classroom, for example, is typically synchronous. Synchronous means live, like we're talking right now. In the virtual world, we believe learning should be asynchronous and synchronous and blended together. So, how do we move to a classroom type teaching, which we have done over the years, probably thousands of years, and move it to a 50% asynchronous, which is project based learning, or other forms of learning, and 50% classroom learning. And this can't happen overnight. So it's a big challenge. How do you move your faculty members who've been used to a particular way of teaching, move to a new way of teaching? Of course, there are challenges around technology, the challenges around how do you in terms of the lectures, for example, how do you structure them? So one of the things, for example, we have done at Shoolini is to say that 1.5 hour lecture, we've brought it down to 25 minutes because a human mind, we've learned, cannot absorb knowledge for more than 25 minutes. So these are all challenges around learning. How do you move to a virtual university platform? And when I say virtual, it's not just about technology, but it's a different model. It's a different business model about how do you make people learn. I'll talk about opportunities later on, but I'm just laying out the challenges right now. The second thing, which we believe is very, very critical, is research. Universities should be ideally doing a lot of research. They should be innovating every day. Many of these experiments that are happening are continuous. So how do we ensure that we don't shut down? How do we ensure that we are always able to grease our researchers? They're publishing continuously. How do we ensure that our PhD students who are now ready to get their Viva Voce ready, who can submit their PhD thesis, their degrees are not postponed? How do we make sure that we move to a virtual world on that? So research is a second big area. How do we make sure that there is continuity of grants for getting research? That's the second challenge I think that all of us face. The third, which is relatively easier or relatively obvious, is operations. We can't shut down the university. So which operations should I keep open? What operations should I close? I think it's a big issue. There's a cost issue associated over here. What do I close? What should I keep open? How do I maintain my cost? And finally, I think the challenge is around financials. How do I pay my faculty, especially after 2 months, if I'm not able to get my fees from my students? What is going to happen to my research grants that I have been promised by extramural research agencies? What's going to happen to admissions at this moment? We don't know. And finally, the big question around cost. How do we manage my cost? So I think that sort of lays out the near-term challenges. Now let's sort of go into the future for a second. Let's look at some longer-term challenges that we might have. I think the existing environment will fundamentally change the overall operating model of higher education universities. So there'll be challenges around, will my students pay fees if a large chunk of education is happening online? I think it's a challenge that students will ask. Students will ask questions that, do we really need to come to campus to learn if it's so effective to be at home and learn? That's a question we'll have to answer. If I'm in the final year, I'll be very worried about my placements. As an institution, I have to make sure that my placements of my students are not effective, which it might be. I have to worry about the academic calendar. What happens if the academic calendar gets pushed out to September, October? How do I cover up on that? And finally, like I said, the whole issue of research becomes a big question mark right now to say, where will my research grants come from? How will I keep my university running in terms of financials? So I think these are a range of issues that all of us are grappling with. Many of us have got answers to these. Many of us are using it as an opportunity. And I think probably my next part of my webinar will probably talk about the opportunities that will exist for institutions like ours.
Absolutely right, Atul. So every problem has some opportunity. So what opportunity you see in this pandemic?
Manisha, I'm going to start by a joke which I always narrate. And this is no offenses to all my academicians and my academic colleagues over here. But the joke is about a teacher, a university teacher, and a doctor who somewhere get into coma in the 1800s. And they all come back to life now, which is a month ago, while the doctor cannot recognize the operating theater. Everything has changed. Technology has come in, robotics has come in. The university teacher just goes and starts teaching because nothing has changed. We are still teaching with a blackboard and chalk. And that's the reality of higher learning, that the way we used to teach has not changed. And we need to change, and we need to shake the box, shake the tree, and bring in huge amount of innovation into learning in higher education. And that's the reason why we're talking about so many students unemployable, etc., etc., etc. So I see it as a huge opportunity. I see that the resistance of academicians to change will go away. A small example, my own father, who would find it very, very difficult to get on conference calls, is now doing Zoom very easily, very effectively. So I think we're changing the way academicians, faculty, etc., are thinking about learning. So it's an opportunity for us to change our operating model. Probably the answer is a blended model of the virtual world and the real world. So I think that's the first big change that's going to happen, and that's the big opportunity for all of us. Things that we always wanted to do as academicians, as management, we can now do it because people are getting more and more used to using technology, whether it's students or it's teachers. I think the second big opportunity is for the universities or institutions that are what I call innovators, which are the ones who are doing the right things. Whenever any dramatic change happens, like what's happening today, there will be cream and the milk will get separated. The boys and the men will get separated. So you'll see that the universities that were, were not up to the mark, which were not focusing on the right things, will suddenly lose out in a very, very dramatic way. So the winners will win all. So expect emergence of 10 to 15 to 20 large universities going forward, universities that will capture the students' imagination, universities that will capture the regulators' imagination, universities that will capture the faculty imagination. And these are the ones that will really become stronger. And the ones which are not innovative, I think, are going to lose out. I think finally, we've always spoken about using technology and alliances into the way we run a university, whether it's for research or it's for learning. Traditional things that the business world has been doing now for the last 20 years. And I think that's something that's going to come to the higher education world too. So if you think about the United States, if you think about a traditional university, offshoring was a concept we introduced 25, 30 years back. So Citibank's processes are run out of Chennai, for example. So all this whole thing about virtual classroom or virtual university is something corporates did 25, 30 years ago. So it's something really good that's happening. I think higher educational institutions will now follow best practices of the corporate world. They'll start moving into deeper alliances with institutions across the world. They'll move towards leveraging technology. I'll speak a second on alliances. Let's think about research for a second. Every researcher of my university tells me that, hey, I want an electron microscope. Without an electron microscope, I cannot do great particle physics work, as an example, or I can't do great biology work. And my point is that there must be 100,000 electron microscopes across the world, but probably their average utilization, I would assume, is not more than 5 to 10%. Probably 90% excess capacity that's sitting on high-end equipment across the world. So can universities partner with each other, leverage that capacity that exists across the world, and make sure that capital is effectively used? I think that's another big opportunity for institutions. So to sum it up, I'm basically saying there's going to be a new business model, there's going to be a new way that students will learn, there's going to be a new way that universities will operate, and there's going to be a new way that research is going to happen, especially through leveraging technology and alliances.
And we hope, Atul, very soon this coronavirus will end soon. And after that, how you see higher education ecosystem after this coronavirus and this pandemic? How you see higher education will work, and what will be the impact of this coronavirus in higher education?
So that's a $1 million question, Manish. I hope I knew the answer, but I'll try an attempt to answer it. I think my first request would be to the regulators. So at least in India, we're extremely highly regulated. We've got multiple regulators, whether it's the UGC or it's from the accreditation side, it's NAC, or it's the state regulator, or it's AICTE, or it's the PCI, or it's the BCI, or it's the MCI. There are a range of regulators that regulate us. I do hope this will change the way the regulators think. They start understanding the value of a new operating model, which I spoke about. So I think if the regulator doesn't change, it's going to be extremely changed difficult for institutions to change. So I think my belief is that the regulators are increasingly changing the way they're believing, they're thinking. So the changes that we spoke about are going to be lasting. What we are going to do at Shoolini, I can speak about. We are going to bring in blended learning for sure. We're going to bring in asynchronous learning in a bigger way. I don't think I'm going to build more classrooms anymore. I'm going to leverage, I'm going to build technology. Why should, a question, Manish, why should my student not sit in the beautiful environments of the pine forest which I have around? Why should he sit inside a classroom, which is such a boring place to be? Well, not for all the time, at least for some part of the time. Why wouldn't he sit in the gardens and learn? Why do we need to have everyone stifled into a 60 by 60 room? Why can't we think about other ways to make students learn? So I think these are big questions that everyone is asking. I was speaking to the president of one of the Ivy League universities yesterday, and he was asking a fundamental question. He said, Atul, why do students come to Harvard? And I said, okay, because it's a great learning, it's a great degree. And he asked me, he said, but I think we're able to deliver the same quality using a virtual university platform. I said, yes. Then why should a student pay $150,000? I said, okay, that's very interesting. Why should they? And my answer was because it's a private club. You're entering into a unique group of people that you want to spend, for which you want to spend $150,000. And his question was that, what if I pick up Shoolini and I say, hey, can you get students out of India, move them into your university for 2 weeks, do a incubation, do an introductory session for them, then move them digital for 2 months, get them back into an offline platform like your university, and only the final year get them over to, let's say, Harvard or any other university. So I think these are the fundamental type of questions people are asking to say, can we do things differently? The second question this president was asking is to say that, why should there be a 4-year degree? Who said the degree should be 4 years? Why can't it be 2 years? Why can't it be 3 years or 6 years? We don't know the answer. So I think these are the type of fundamental questions that academicians and managers of education are going to ask. And I hope that the regulators in India will also ask these deep and fundamental questions to say that if we're used to do a particular sort of thing over the last 100 years, 1,000 years, can we change the box? Can we break the box, I would say? Make sure that students are truly learning, not just doing things by rotating the way they've been doing over the last 100 years. And I think many universities are thinking like this. I've been speaking to friends, and I think it's going to be sustainable right now. There will be big changes that happen in the higher education space. I'm very, very confident about that.
So Atul, you developed your own e-learning platform. So can you please explain about your e-learning platform? And you already said that in near future you will also use e-learning technology. You will use lots of technology rather than develop a new classroom in near future. Maybe after some years, definitely you will increase the classroom. But in near future, you will use lots of technology. And you also told you developed a e-learning software at your own, and you integrated with your LMS so that you can monitor what students are learning. So can you please tell me more about this e-learning platform so that lots of institution can get
Sure.
advantage with this
I'll
software?
just go back, 5 years. We created a platform called E-University. We created an LMS which is built around Moodle. The whole belief that we had at Shoolini was that we need to change the way education happens. And the reason was very simple. The reason was one part of our mission, which is written over here, is actually to make sure that we can provide world-class education to underprivileged students. Now, my average fees at Shoolini is around 70 to 80,000 rupees, and I aspire to give them Harvard quality education. It's impossible to do that in a pure brick and mortar world. So we started flirting with technology around 5 years ago, and we sizably built this platform in association with the University of Phoenix at that point of time, which we called E-University or EUNIV. Around 2 years back, we started again building technology around integrating online learning or virtual classrooms as what we're having today with the LMS. See, the challenges of using Zoom, according to me, are threefold. First, Zoom may not be fully integrated into LMS, which means it's extremely difficult for you to monitor whether the student is learning or not. You might not be able to run live quizzes, etc., on Zoom. And lastly, Zoom is also expensive at the end of the day, and we have to deliver programs that are scalable. So 2 years ago, we actually have our own technology company. It's by the name of Adu. So we started building a technology platform on an open source called BBB, or Big Blue Button. We've built an open source on BBB. It's fully integrated into LMS, which means along with the learning, the faculty members can run assessments in the class. They can run projects or asynchronous learning along with the students. They can monitor attendance of students. They can integrate the LMS. They can record the lectures. They can do lots and lots of stuff which otherwise they could not have been doing with third-party platforms. So it's my open offer. Anyone, any university that sees this webinar, if they want help, want support, both from an intellectual level or from a technology level or from the way learning happens at Shoolini, we're very, very happy to open that to all of you. Like I said, the world is going to be very different in the next few years. Technology will be a normal part of the way we work. It's already become a normal part of lots of different things. You know, the way we buy, for example, has changed. Who would have thought that I'll be buying my Nike shoes from Flipkart and Amazon 20 years ago? But that happened, right? And believing that technology will not disrupt higher education, I think, will be foolish. So technology will disrupt higher education. Let's disrupt the way we work. And anyone who needs support at Shoolini will be delighted to provide that support.
Thank you so much, Atul. Before we will open this session for question and answer, so quickly we want to know 2-3 minute note about your universities. How what are the main things in your university which is up to the mark, and little bit about your university.
Sure. So Manish, we are a young university. We are a private university in Himachal Pradesh. We were founded 10 years ago, so we are 10-year-old. But as 10 years back, we made a promise, and the promise was threefold, which was we call the Shoolini mission. And that's sort of planted right behind me, and I live this every day. So does every faculty member of ours. The mission was very simple. The mission was we want to make leaders out of underprivileged students who study in tier 2, tier 3 cities who otherwise do not get an opportunity. We also said we'll be as clean as possible. We'll be as honest as possible. So we are a not-for-profit. There is absolutely no left pocket, right pocket that happens at Shoolini, as honest as it gets. And finally, we said we'll be a research-centric university. We believe the role of a university has to have a sizable impact on the community, and research plays a big role. We also took a stance of saying that we would aspire to be a top 200 global university, which is out there at the back, by 2022. So research, education for the masses are the two big areas that Shoolini works on. So by definition, we are multidisciplinary. So we work from high-end research to areas of artificial intelligence, to areas of biology, to areas of soft areas like music, to liberal arts, law, hotel management. So it's a range of programs that we have. We have around 4,000 students now on campus. Out of them, 3,000 live on campus. We are located in Himachal Pradesh in a very beautiful environment in the middle of a pine forest, Manish. And we've been very lucky. We've got great faculty with us. We've got more than 250 full-time faculty members. Most of them are PhDs. Many of them are either faculty, are either postdocs or PhDs from top global universities. And last but not the least, I'm very, very excited about my students, because these are the students, when they go and get employed by top MNCs or Indian companies, they've never disappointed us. Many of them have overperformed even the IITians or the IIM students. So we have been promising 100% placements that we have delivered all these years. The faculty works like a community. We believe we are a family. As far as research is concerned, we are now India's number one patent filer. We file more patents than the IITs. We, on
That's
academic
great.
research or citational research, we are a top three university in the country. So our citation index is amongst the highest amongst any university of the country. So it's a passion that we have. It's, I would say, it's a religion that we have to do something different. Last but not the least, Shoolini. Many of you will ask me, what does Shoolini mean? So Shoolini is the goddess of my hometown, which is Solan. Shoolini is from Shul. It's an incarnation of Durga from Shul, and we believe we are blessed by Shoolini Mata. Otherwise, we couldn't have done it. I'm as middle class as it gets. I had no money. Neither did my father, who founded Shoolini, or my other partners, Vishal and others who started Shoolini. We had no money when we started. We started with 25 lakh rupees. We think we've built a world class university that's definitely a top 10 in the country today. And this is all happening because of divine power. And we hope and pray that this divine power continues on us and we have the right set and the right mind to be a role model university for the country.
Uh, Thank you so much, Atul. So quickly, we will take two or three questions. After that, we will wrap up the session. So one question is from Manju, and she asked, "Don't you think we need to combine the old with the new, the best of the traditional with the choicest of the innovation?"
I completely agree with you, Manju. I think I know you teach English and literature. So we have to make our students read books, as an example. So that's part of the old. If you don't read books, you will not understand what it means to write or read. So we have to make our students read, as an example, when it comes to English or literature. On the technology side, however, you can actually you can, for example, have access to a million books on Amazon. I'm not restricted to go to a bookshop. I can actually download books on my tablet or my phone or whatever, and I can read my books. So absolutely right. We have to blend both. We have to blend the old and the new, and I think that's what the new model is going to be. People who go either pure brick and mortar or they go pure virtual will not succeed. And I'll bring an example of retailing, for example. Amazon, which is the number one virtual retailer of the world, is now setting up brick and mortar retail stores. So we'll bring technology into making the old world more efficient. That's the way I see it.
Atul, we have a short of time, and we will quickly wrap up this session with your 2 minute closing note.
Okay, I think we are in a very interesting part of our lives. We've gone through something completely unexpected. We've gone through something which is a very big disruption, not just in higher education, but also the way we live. I think Corona and COVID teach us that we as human beings were running too fast. I think the last 25 years, human beings were running too fast. We're trying to achieve too much. So COVID makes us think to step back, to look at the great environment around us. So my 2 cents would be to enjoy nature. Let's not kill what we have. But simultaneously, let's use the best things that humans have innovated, which is technology, which is a new wave of doing things. So let's not stop innovating, but let's do innovation sensibly. Let's do it with an environmentally friendly perspective. And let's make sure we don't make robots out of our students. Let's make sure that they can socialize. We need to create social environments that they talk to each other. We need to make sure that they are great family people. We need to make sure that our universities create great mothers and fathers and sisters and brothers, politicians and prime ministers, which cannot be done virtually. So let's not make robots. Let's make great leaders out of every student that we have. And I think this is a great opportunity for all of us. Of course, there are challenges, but I'm sure that as Indians, as human beings, we'll all live up to those challenges. And as academicians, we will move to a better world. Thank you very much, Manish. Thank you,
Thank you
everyone.
so much. Thank you so much, Atul, for this wonderful fire chat session. And we will catch up you again very soon. Thank you so much, Atul.
Thank you, Manish. It's a pleasure. Bye bye. Thank you, everyone.